Hey, students, families, welcome back to session 7. And today's an interesting conversation to talk about, an interesting concept that we find in the Bible, and that's the concept of fasting. This is one that is probably, I'll say for me, one of the more difficult things to comprehend and go through is because, well, I like to eat. And fasting is something that we here, especially the 21st century, just probably don't have as much of a concept or an eagerness to fast because, well, we like our food. Look how easy it is. We can drive through a drive-through at any fast food chain. There are restaurants all up and down the roads we can pull into, walk in, sit down, and within 15, 20 minutes, somebody's bringing food and setting at your table. We can go home. We can go to the pantry, pull out something, put it in the microwave, get ice cream out of the freezer, scoop it out, and start eating. So often up in the youth room, we have the kitchen, and I like to make sure there's plenty of snacks there. So we like to eat, and fasting is one of those things that maybe sometimes we don't spend a lot of time thinking about, or maybe you've never tried to do it before. Fasting in the Bible is talked about in numerous times. You see it often throughout the Old Testament. The fasts that were publicly proclaimed by Israel's leaders, and they were in response often to God's judgment. And you see, it's interesting as you see Jesus comes and he starts to talk about this fasting. And he's ridiculed by the Pharisees, and they kind of go at Jesus saying, you're not even instructing your disciples to fast. And Jesus says, well, and he likens it to a wedding. He says, the time of celebration with the groom is not a time to fast. He goes, it's at the time where the groom is gone or lost that we should be in mourning, and at that time in fast. But see, in the Old Testament, it was often this fasting, again, was done because of God's judgment. It was a way to say, God, we're sorry. We're coming back to you. We're going to focus on you instead of food and whatever else. We're going to spend our focus on you. And that's what Jesus was getting at. When we get this idea of fasting, so often we're like, oh, man, I want to eat. I'm just so hungry. We get thought on that food. And our thought on food is not where God wants us to have that thought. No, the whole purpose of a fast and what Jesus is coming back to here is that he doesn't want us to do it because it's some form of religious ritual, some form of tradition. No, it's because we need to take and focus ourselves on him. That we don't worry about food because we know God will provide for us. We are going to spend this time and decide to fast to focus on God. We're going to spend more time in his word. We're going to spend more time in prayer. We're going to listen to God. So that's what Jesus is getting at this whole thing. He doesn't want a legalistic approach to God as much as he wants us to have a personal relationship with him. He wants us to draw nearer to him. So again, thank you for joining me here in session 7. I encourage you to jump into read this devotion with your family and look at that last part. We often talk with fasting as it has to do with food. If you read that book this week for day 7, you'll also see that there are other forms of fasting. It could be from video games. It could be from electronics, from social media. We can fast from all kinds of different stuff. The goal is, as we give up these things, that we draw nearer to God, not just give it up and find something else to replace it with, but give that time to God. So enjoy it. Read along, email me with any questions. I hope to see you next session. Thanks, guys.